Thank you, Igor, for making it today. I appreciate it.
No problems at all. It's a pleasure.
Igor's come in to get a little bit more of a feel and a vibe about Bedros's event, and then we'll talk a little bit more later.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
We'll touch on that right at the end. We're good to go? Yeah, excellent.
Okay.
So first and foremost, we'd like to begin with acknowledging the original custodians of the land in which we stand here today, Gundungara, and pay our respects to the elders past and present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today as well.
And before we start, I just wanted to explain that Brave is actually a movement, and it's a movement to help women find their bravery to chase their dreams with confidence. So Brave is a movement, and it's a project that's supported by our board and the Women's Committee and our mentors and the New South Wales Government. So if you want to find out more information, please go to the cbcchamber.org.au to find out more. Now, the most important part of this is that Brave and the Brave Project is helping women to return to work, and it's instrumental that we empower women to do so. So most of you, or some of you might be saying, why is Rob here? Now, everybody knows that I'm an advocate, that men must be part of that conversation and solution. You must, in order to help people gain confidence, men must be part of that journey. Rob's got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. We're obviously going to bounce off a couple of ideas today. But before we go, I'm going to introduce exactly who we are and showcase to you a whole heap of information.
So my name is Robert Theodoridis. This is Connie Theodoridis, and we are a duo, husband and wife team. We do have multiple businesses. I've been an electrician for 22 years, got an electrical contracting business, but me and Connie have also established Fifth Events, which is fairly new. Something that was supposed to launch before COVID, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And you're probably wondering what Fizz Events is. Fizz Events for us is elevating people one event at a time, bringing the best speakers, entrepreneurs from around the world in one place where they can share their wisdom and knowledge and, again, help elevate people with their personal lives and businesses as well.
So today what we're going to do is, I've been working in the industry for over 20 years, coaching people and businesses to elevate their business message and their business brand. And what we want to do today is ensure that we provide you a fundamental structure and strategy to showcase the most fundamental parts of building a brand. And it's not just your logo, and it's not just the pictures and the colourful images that Igor, obviously watching, will tell you it's about. It's about the consistency. It's about people's perception. It's about all these little fundamentals that we're going to go through. So I do recommend, if this is new to you, to actually have a pen and paper. We are going to have a question and answer section towards the end, but we're going to try to showcase as much information to you, not just make this another talk, because what Rob and I like doing is talking and giving you guys information. Is that all right? Thumbs up, everybody. Ready to rock and roll? Excellent. We've got thumbs going up.
Good.
So before we start, Rob.
I think the first topic we're going to talk about, there's a few different topics that we're going to speak about, but the first one for me is really important, and that's purpose. A lot of people don't understand why they go into business in the first place. So when you're developing a brand, having a strong purpose behind your brand and the reason why you're going into business is pivotal. And often I see people, they go into business with the purpose of just earning money. Money is great. I mean, we need money to survive and to live, and that's a byproduct of the service that we provide. But it shouldn't be the only reason why you go into business. There's got to be a deeper meaning why we go into business, not just money itself. And that stems from trust, that stems from your values, that stems from many things. And you really need to set that straight before you actually go into business and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the whole reason behind it? What's the purpose? There's got to be a strong underlying reason why you do that.
I think another part that's really important is, these days being average is not enough. Your industries, you need to understand, are so flooded. So one of the things that we're going to constantly harp on throughout the whole presentation is you need to know how to differentiate yourself between the rest of the people in your industry. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? And why are people going to come back to you? That is all a part of branding. And we're going to talk about sort of like what things can you do to actually differentiate yourself apart from your competitors.
Absolutely. A key thing that I want to say about differentiation is I want to share a quick story with you with Steve Jobs and Apple. Now, I found throughout my journey is having a great logo and some funky colors and a great slogan is fantastic, but you've got to really have something more meaningful. You've got to have a story behind your brand. firstly. So all that's important. But when you got a story, when you got an emotional connection with people, and Steve Jobs done this so well with Apple. Apple was on the brink of going bust in '97. Steve Jobs had left the company. He come back in, and he revived the company with his beautiful storytelling. You know, he managed to pin it down just to launch 4 specific products. He systemized everything. It was nice and simple. And by doing that, today Apple is worth nearly $3 trillion. So by having your authenticity and a story behind your brand, a lot of people suppress their story, believe it or not. Your biggest strength could be your story behind your brand. And this is why sometimes when we start peeling back the layers, don't be afraid to share your story. I know there's a few people on here which they've shared my story with me. I haven't shared my story with you, but that makes people want to purchase from people. That makes people want to interact with people, because people don't necessarily buy something from a business just because of their logo and their slogan. People buy from people, because when you build that trust, that authenticity, you want to do business with someone.
Absolutely. And the other thing, for those of you that are actually working in businesses where you have employees, people are going to want to work for people that actually have a purpose. If you've got something that you're working towards and people feel like they belong as a part of that particular journey, your people are going to give you more energy, and they're going to want to make, their days a lot happier and productive when they know what they're working towards. So that's another really important part. And what that does is it actually makes people clear about what they're working towards and what that goal is about. And that's really important when we're looking at what we're talking about in regards to purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. You want to go on anything?
Well, I think the other thing I really want to, we've got some really, I know some of you on there. The other thing is that it has a positive impact. I know a lot of you that are watching today give back. So one of the things is, if you haven't developed a brand, or you actually have a brand and you haven't reevaluated, you need to know how you're giving back and what positive change you're making in your industries, because that gives you credibility. It elevates you guys. Yeah. It makes you different. It makes you stand out. It shows people that you care. People want to go and buy from people that care, which is really important. I mean, we're going to get into, the logos and all that in a minute, but when there's messaging and there's meaning behind that, people will pull towards you more and make your brand stand out. People remember you like that.
Absolutely. One more important thing on purpose is long-term sustainability. So when you have, like I said before, a deeper meaning, a deeper pull as to do what you do in your businesses, you've got a strong connection and a strong bond with your clients and your customers. So a perfect example, we found, obviously everyone went through a hard period through COVID. And during that time, we had 12 full-time staff. And we hit a patch where a lot of our builders stopped all their projects. So we had to pivot. But luckily for us, our core values were around safety, efficiency, and comfort. So being in the industry, we built that rapport with people, and we had to pivot. And luckily for us, we had a plan to execute, which we did beautifully. And believe it or not, some of our biggest growth and our biggest goals were achieved during that time. So always remember a strong purpose as to why you get into business in the first place, not just money.
Yeah, so I guess there's on your screen you can see is, if you haven't thought about this, the most important part I want you to remember, if number one, because we've only got 45 minutes here with you, is understand what your why is. And I've got Igor smiling. I can see he understands that. Thumbs up if you haven't done so. And for those of you that have done that, reevaluate what your why is. Really understand why you're actually doing this, because it actually elevates your brand and gives your brand meaning. What we're going to do, that's purpose. We're actually going to move to number 2 now, which is the identity. So basically the number 2 section is where it actually looks at your elements, like your logos, your colors, and your brand visually. So what I've put up there with Rob is just an example. There's so much more out there that you can actually research in regards to having a look at what different colors mean. Now, some of you might have done this, some of you might not have done this before, but it's really in regards to having a research and understanding what do you want your symbols, what do you want your colors to actually mean when people are looking at your information and your logos. This is something you can actually do yourself, or you can actually hire someone to do that. But what Rob and I actually strongly recommend, any contractor you get on board, must really understand what your purpose and your vision behind your brand is, because only you know your brand best.
Absolutely. And I think too, when you establish your colours, your logo, you really need to be consistent in that messaging, because if you're not, people get mixed messages. And you can just see from the big brands on that screen. For me, red was always a powerful colour. I asked myself, many years ago, why do the big brands use red? Not all big brands use red, but it made me think. And there's obviously a psychology behind the colours that you choose that represent yourself and your brand and what you stand for as well.
Absolutely. So that's obviously number 2. We'll move on to number 3. Number 3 is a really important thing for me. It basically talks about what your brand stands for.
Absolutely. Values is so important. For me, we've got so many non-negotiables in our business, from how we interact with clients, how we speak to clients, how we communicate with clients, the messaging that we're giving to people on a daily basis. How do we talk to people when there's something raised that's a bit challenging? It could be internally, it could be externally. How do we deal with those things? And that is so pivotal with your values and your morals and what you stand for. Now, values could be something like, if there's an issue or someone emails you, do I have to get back to that person within 48 hours? When I'm doing a quote, do I have to get it out there within 24 hours? What are the values that you stand for? As a brand, if people get mixed messages or you're not reliable with your values and your morals and you're inconsistent, people will start to question that. So you've got to remember that you've got to have strong core values, and that could be just from the communication side of things, how we interact with people, how we interact with our staff, and what we stand for.
Elaborating from what Rob is saying, obviously I've been coaching for the last 20 years. One of the things I find is really successful, and I do recommend that you write this down because you can never get perfect. What I recommend is, if someone wants to really elevate their brand, is to make sure you understand all the different operations of your actual business and how you go above and beyond for your particular consumer or client to understand the values behind your brand. And it's important that you determine that at brand development stage. It's important to reevaluate that, because the big companies are constantly doing this to show how they actually stand out, which elevates them to success, which is fundamental in what you do in regards to this values section.
I'm actually going to add something else in return to values. So another important thing which I find has worked absolutely beautifully throughout the years is when you're providing a service to someone. Now, if your standard is here in the service that you have to provide, don't strive to complete it here or exactly what you have to provide. I always go above and beyond. Now, that could be something simple. It could be, you might purchase a small gift. You might do something else that's out of the scope of works. Recently, we did a job, from a girl, part of one of our networking groups, and we did some extra work. Now, that extra work wasn't a lot. It was a couple of $100. But let me show you the power of that couple of $100. I expected nothing in return. Yesterday, I got a phone call from one of their neighbours, and obviously this lady spoke highly of us. And just by doing a small gesture, on top of doing a great job and providing a great service, they referred us to their neighbours. So always ensure that with your values, you go the extra mile. You do something extra. It might be a simple phone call and just, catching up and saying, hey, is everything okay with the work that we did? Can I do anything else to support you, to help you, to assist you? Just those small gestures with your values can go a very, very long way.
So far, guys, just to recap for those of you that might have just joined in, branding is not your logo and just the color of your picture or what picture you've chosen. These are key components that I use over the 20 years when I've been coaching people, hand on heart. Those businesses that actually implement what we're saying, they're so simple and they constantly reevaluate, are the ones that are winning the awards, are the ones that are champions, are the ones that are actually turning around the profit that they've actually set aside because they put effort into that. So we've spoken about purpose. If you don't understand your why, you've got a bit of homework to do. We've spoken about identity. There's a lot of energy that goes into the colouring and actually putting together the symbols and pictures. And values, as Rob said, what are you doing to go above and beyond? And then that leads to our lovely Coles and get the other screen up for us, which once you've got all that understanding, you're actually going to have a look at one of the most important things is your voice and your tone. And this is, have a look what it says. It is basically how you're interacting and communicating with your audience. Your voice, your brand voice must be consistent throughout anything that you do, all your touch points, social media, networking, advertising, your socials, your marketing, whatever you do must be consistent in the way that you're actually communicating what your brand is trying to tell people and who you actually want to gravitate, what customers and consumers you want to come towards you and either use your services or buy your products.
Absolutely. Talk about communication. How good's Connie with communication?
Oh, it's embarrassing me, absolutely embarrassing me. So I think that's really important. And what the difference between tone is, a lot of people get these confused. Your voice stays consistent. You do not change your voice. You can reevaluate what type of voice you want to be communicating over time. People pivot. Your tone, just for those people who don't know, is your department or how you deal with customer and customer complaints, for example, is going to be very different on how you actually welcome a new customer. So you're not going to be having a high-pitched voice when you're actually welcoming a customer, because that's incongruent and people are going to start questioning the authenticity and credibility of your business. So a successful brand knows how to keep a consistent voice, but also knows how to change the tonality depending on the situation at the time. So, for example, we went through COVID. I'm sorry I'm bringing that up again. We weren't going to have a brand talking about COVID as being an exciting thing. That's inconsistent, is what I'm trying to say. So it's really important when we actually talk about that people understand the difference between voice and tone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're going to move on to perception now, how important perception is in regards to branding. So we've been through this ourselves. Perception is so important, and we actually stumbled across this. We didn't realize we were doing it. So how powerful perception can be with your brand. So when you're consistent, when you've established your core values, you know, in 2018, I remember, I'm going to share a story with you. We won our first industry award. And this is, I want to share this with you because this applies to absolutely everyone. Just a simple conversation with someone at that awards night. After we'd won our award, we're on stage taking a photo. This gentleman was next to me and he was from one of the biggest, if not the biggest, electrical company in Australia now. They've been around for 110 years. And we got talking. We shared a couple of stories, a couple of things, and we created that emotional bond between us. Now, I'm not sure exactly what was said at that night, and I'm not sure exactly what that gentleman remembered, but fast forward 12 months, and I remember a Tier 2 builder called us up, and they said, we're doing a major project in North Kellyville, would you be interested? And I happened to ask him who actually referred us to you guys, and he said, this gentleman from Stowe, he met you at the industry awards at NECA at the start, and he remembered you and your company. And that was just from a simple conversation and a contract worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, if I hadn't made that connection, if I hadn't made that conversation, and if we went there in the first place, we wouldn't have gotten that. How powerful perception can be. And this gentleman asked me, she goes, you must have a huge company. I said, no, we don't. We're a husband and wife team. We've got a couple of electricians on board. We're a small team, but we're packing a punch. And this is why perception, you don't have to be a large organization to pack a punch. You know, by being a single person, I started with, you know, a man in a van setup. So you don't have to be huge to have that perception. One, that you do a great job. Two, that you're bigger than you are. So always remember that, and always never forget that a simple conversation can lead to great things as well.
I'm going to add something on with what Rob was saying, and I'm going to bring the importance of understanding personal brand. I want you to stop for a moment and I want you to think. We're here talking about business brand, but we also have our personal brand. When we step outside, how do we want people to perceive us? When we're talking, what perception do we give out when we speak to people? How we greet people? How we go live on, now social is so huge, how you're going live on socials. Is that congruent with your business message? When you're out networking is huge. We do it all the time. How are you going to the networking events? How are you preparing for those networking events? How are you leaving your mark? Now, those of you that know, I do a lot of training around leaving your mark, and that is remembering. How are people going to remember who you are? Says a lot about the brand communication and what you're doing when you're out there in that big world. And a lot of the clients I work with, I find when they do a lot of that work and they learn, and it's experience, guys, you just keep getting better and better, yeah? No one is perfect. This is something we practice and we keep working on to make sure that the perception of others is accurate. And one thing I do that I find real, I get feedback. I try to obtain feedback to get an understanding. Is the messaging, you know, accurate? Am I actually accurate with my messaging? There's nothing more powerful than asking people what they think. And that's the whole idea of perception, which is closely, and Rob's going to share a really good story, closely linked to the emotional connection, which is our next slide, which is very linked to all those smiley faces that strong brands actually evoke emotions in their audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Having that emotional connection with your customers, prospective customers, is, I can't tell you how strong this is. I just shared a story with you with Steve Jobs and the importance of Steve Jobs had an Apple revival. His storytelling was phenomenal. And sometimes we don't have to fabricate the story. It doesn't have to, you don't want it to be fake, because people can sniff that, people can smell that. It's got to be real. It's got to be raw. It's got to be your unique story. And I'm going to share how important stories are when it comes to business and that connection with people. I started working in my parents' takeaway shop from 11 years of age. My parents had several takeaway shops, but the last shop they ever owned was in Cherrybrook. Now, I could barely see over the counter. I was that small, so I was in year 6 going into year 7. All the school holidays we used to gather and help with my brothers and my sister. And my parents implemented this thing where every time a child would come in with their parents, they'd receive a lollipop. And some of you may have heard this story, some may not, but I'll share it anyway. And I didn't think much of it. So every week, my father used to order containers and containers of lollipops. Now, you might not think it's a big deal, but look at the power of just a small gesture and that emotional connection. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm walking in a shopping centre, a local busy shopping centre, and a girl looks at me and she approaches me and she stops me. And she goes, "Weren't you one of the brothers that used to work at Apple Tree Oasis, your parents' takeaway shop, all those years ago in Cherrybrook?" I said, "Yep, my name's Rob, youngest of 4 siblings." And she goes to me, "I'll never forget how your parents used to make me feel every time I'd come into that shop to receive that lollipop." We're talking about a girl who was in her 20s, 20 years later, who remembered a small gesture of a 5-cent lollipop. Now, that emotional connection that girl had was impeccable. You can't buy that. And this is what I mean by going the extra mile with your branding. It could be a simple conversation. It could be a simple gesture. It could be something so small that you think is irrelevant to someone, but in someone else's eyes, it's absolutely priceless, and they'll remember it for a lifetime.
It's important, if you haven't documented, I'm going to go nice and slow so you understand, your customers or your consumers' entire customer engagement process with you. I'm not telling you what you would like your customers to feel. That's entirely up to you. But look at the screen. Simple words. I'm trying to keep this simple for you and Rob. For Rob and I'm so sorry. Strong brands often evoke emotions in their audience. What do you want your consumer, client, customer to feel when they engage with you? If you do this well, they will come back after time and time and time again, because this is very much linked to my next slide, which is important. It's not enough just to come up with this plan, everybody. Oh, if you can please get to the next slide. This is probably the most important for me. Consistency is so important. And I actually wrote something down. Being a facilitator and mentor, I didn't introduce obviously what I do outside of this is obviously I mentor and I facilitate a lot of these workshops. And sometimes I get really big ideas. So the most important thing here that's really moved in the last 5 years is authenticity and credibility. People buy, people gravitate towards businesses and brands. Remember, you are your brand, you are your business. When people are showing a trustworthy, consistent message across all touch points, uniforms, business cards, your way you speak, your newsletters, your socials, everything you do must be documented so you know the visibility that your people are having with you to make sure that you're reviewing and that you are consistent across the board. And you must reevaluate that. You don't only do it at the beginning. you do it throughout. And those of you that can actually do that and do it well, which you all can, because you all look amazing in terms, I don't know from what I'm seeing, are the businesses that are going to be successful, are the businesses that are going to stand out, are the PIP businesses, which leads to the next point in regards to that are different.
One of my favourites.
I love that one. I want to be that black ladder, and I want to teach you. This is why we do this, and it's more than just us talking. It's a workshop where I want you to be writing down. I want you to learn to be different, because I'm not joking. I've been doing this for 20 years. The industry is flooded more than ever. You need to learn how to stand out from other businesses so people can come to you. It's not enough to have the pretty McDonald's logo anymore. Hungry Jack's is slowly creeping up to McDonald's, I can tell you that much. What are they doing? I see Hungry Jack's everywhere now. Especially, I don't know if any of you drive through that freeway off the F3, I think it is, towards the McDonald's. Both of them got replaced by Hungry Jack's. What's that saying about brand? Robbie?
Differentiation.
Different.
This is one of my favourites by far. And this actually blew me away, which again, you know, you learn so many things as you evolve in your own business. You know, when you first start, you think you know everything and you're all this, and which, let me tell you, you get humbled very quickly. So differentiation, I mean, how do we stand out in a busy crowd? How do we stand out in a busy world? There's so many electricians out there. There's so many plumbers. There's so many accountants. There's so many web developers. There's so many, you name it. The thing is, we need to ask ourselves, if we don't have some type of point of difference, unfortunately, we're just going to be like a commodity like everybody else. What are some of the things that we can do as a brand to make us stand out? And I was fortunate enough, Connie did jump on board in 2018, and we powered through this together, because when you bounce ideas off each other, you just go to a whole new level. And, you know, she was in that space of, you know, doing awards applications for other businesses. And so that's what we started to do. But in order to do that, you got to provide a great service. You got to provide a reliable service. You got to provide quality work. And by doing that, we started to get recognized by our peers in our industry. Now, when you start getting recognized by your peers, if you can nominate yourself for an award for something, or one of your clients nominates you for an award, that's fantastic, because that gives you credibility. That makes you stand out. That makes you have something that others don't. It's your point of difference. And when you start to win these credentials and these awards, that stays with you forever. No one can ever take that away from you. If you have any opportunities to maybe go on a podcast on someone's show, by all means, put your hand up. If you get an invitation to go to an event that's invite only, by all means, put your hand up. Do everything you possibly can, whether it's writing a blog or an article on some form of media that puts yourself out there to get yourself known and your brand known. And by that, like I said, no one can take that away from you. It's social proof for yourself and your brand, personal brand and business brand, that can elevate you to have that point of difference.
And I'm making notes here as we go. I know I've got my slide, but I know I always pivot and change. A quick story on my behalf now that he was saying that. So I created my business quite a few years ago. And there was some fundamentals that I'm going to share with you. I always strive to be the best. I always knew my product position. And the most important thing is that you really need to understand what you're doing with your messaging. And I'll give you a really good example in that I nominate myself for most outstanding new business in the local business awards. And I went to the awards. Rob was sitting right next to me. 35 entries, 35 powerhouse entries. Hand on heart, the amount of commitment and work I put into standing out. There's a lot of things that are happening out there in the real world that you've got to get used to, that you've got to be doing to get your brand out there. Yeah. Podcasts, like Rob was saying, professional development, getting yourself out there, showcasing what you do. I'm not gonna lie, I had no chance of winning that. But guess what? I won it. I won it because I was different. I won it because my submission had so many points of differentiation in there, and I was so consistent with my messaging. And the other thing I had, I'm going to get back to this, was credibility. I was able to attach all these examples of credibility to my submission, because it's not enough to walk the walk. Has anyone heard that saying? You need to talk the talk. And what we want to do today is to showcase to you 8 fundamental points that are part of branding and developing your brand. Now, some of you might already know that there's platforms out there that can help you. I know that the next workshop is about Canva. Fantastic. There's so many different platforms out there that can help you develop your brand and document all this information. And there's so many experts out there that can assist you. Yeah. And some of you might want to do a combination of both. But what we want to say to you is that it is so important. If you want to build a strong brand, you need to carefully plan. You need to purpose, identity, values, tonality, perception, emotional connection, consistency, and differentiation. The slide's there. It was simple captions underneath each one. And my recommendation to you as a mentor, coach, and facilitator that has changed so many people's lives just by doing this is, if you've already done it, reevaluate it. If you haven't done it, go do it. It's as simple as that. How bad do you want your brand to stand out? How bad do you want to be successful is how much work you're going to be putting into what you do. So it's careful planning. Address all the points that we've said to you. I mean, in the next thing, obviously, Rob, is to be consistent through when you're actually implementing your plan.
Absolutely. I'm just going to touch on something too, to do with sales and sales techniques. A lot of the time, we don't do any advertising, but for me, if you do a fundamental and a superb job, no matter what industry you're in, if people get to know how credible you are, how reliable you are, how good your work is, that's sales in itself. Your referrals, word of mouth, is pivotal. Most of our work's all referrals, word of mouth. By doing that, you get great testimonials. That's another sales funnel that people look at before they engage with someone. It's your authority in the industry, like I spoke about before. When you build that authority in the industry and you're known and you have that great reputation, people are going to gravitate towards you. People are going to want to do business with you, especially if your messaging and your story aligns with their values and they've got that emotional pull. It's unstoppable with your branding.
And I'm going to add something. Again, I wrote something down. This fake it till you make it doesn't exist anymore. Fake it till you make it. You don't fake it till you make it anymore. People can smell authenticity and credibility from miles away. It only will get you to a certain point. Then people will get a waft of what you're trying to do and that it's fake. Rob touched on that before. Only to a certain point. The businesses that go on and actually address this and develop their credibility, their messaging, they go above and beyond for their customers. They understand what their personal brand is, what their target audience is, what their customers need. It's up there on the screen, which you can all see.
Yeah.
That they think about the customer experience from the beginning to end and that it aligns with their branding, are the businesses that are going to have a balanced approach and are going to have a good marketing strategy going out there into the real world to communicate that to people. I cannot stress enough, been doing this for such a long time, people who put the effort in there, people who really value what they do and provide value to others are the people that are actually going to really make a difference in the community. And then that's when obviously the rewards reap and come into play.
I second that.
So what we wanted to do today, I know we've been speaking for 35 minutes already. Already,
wow.
Can you believe that? What we wanted to talk to you today is make sure and harp on that a brand is not just a logo or a picture or a pretty color. Yeah. And there is thought behind that as well, but there are so many other fundamentals that we spoke about today that I highly recommend you go home in your businesses. If you're a husband and wife team, if you're a bigger business, if you're a smaller business, if you're a startup business, it doesn't matter. These things are fundamental in making sure that you develop a plan and execute it with such thoroughness. So you've already set yourself up for success.
Absolutely.
And you reevaluate it.
Yeah.
Get out there and then you can actually go out there and change the world and speak to people, be so authentic in what you do.
Absolutely.
These are sort of the summary points that we wanted to speak to you about. And then obviously what you're trying to achieve is that's why we've chosen the bullseye, is to try to minimize it in that bullet point so you can be spot on with what you're trying to do.
For sure. Lastly, I just want to reiterate, if anyone does have any questions or you want to reach out, please feel free to do so. We only teach stuff that we've learned from ourselves, that we've experienced.
How are you, Mark?
With Connie,
Good, thanks.
Laura.
Oh, hello. Who's that?
How much?
I'm gonna, yep, all good. I'm just gonna ask everyone just to mute for a second. We've just got one more slide and we're gonna open up to questions, if that's okay. Excellent. Robbie?
So you're probably wondering what this slide is. This is our final slide, and we just wanted to, obviously we've shared with you what Fizz Events is, and we did hold an event pre-COVID with Mark Burris, who's a good friend of ours, but we're holding our first big event in July. And we've carefully and handpicked an entrepreneur from America. His name's Bedros Keuilian. He's got a large following on his socials. And you may think, who is Bedros? We've never heard of him before. Well, just search him up. Just search him up and do some research. And the reason why we've selected him is he's been there. He's done it. He's got one of the fastest growing franchises in the world. He's got multiple companies. He's worth nearly $500 million. This guy knows his stuff. You know, his one-on-one coaching, they charge $100,000 for. This event is to help elevate people get to where you want to be. Sometimes you could have a block. Sometimes you could be something simple, a minor change that you need to implement. And this is what Rise to Greatness is about, is becoming that 2.0 version of yourself, elevating yourself to be the best person you can be, personal life and business as well.
And before I open up to questions, I've been speaking to you for about 35 minutes about branding. That sentence, rise to greatness, is the brand.
Sums it up.
We thought of those words to make sure that the brand of the event is about us all rising to greatness. Anybody can rise to greatness. This is why Robbie and I do what we do through Fizz Events. Any single person can rise to greatness if they put the work into it. So that's just to summarize the whole brand and concept. Obviously, it's got the colors and all that type of stuff, but it summarizes it quite nicely in terms of what we were talking about. It's purpose-driven. It's for anybody. It's husband and wife teams. It's whoever. It's medium, small, large businesses. We're all collectively rising to greatness together. So we wanted to showcase sort of like that brand, bringing that concept together. And I think that's a wrap up. We're going to do some questions. Rob and I can talk forever in terms of trying to give you as much information as possible. So I want to thank you for listening to us.
Thanks, everyone.
I know we cranked that in. You know, obviously sometimes people talk about brand for months and months and months through workshops. We only had a couple of 35 minutes, which we summarised some good points.
And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We know that time is so precious, so we really appreciate you joining us today on this. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions for the next couple of minutes or so, and some feedback in terms of what you guys thought about the actual workshop as well.
There's a Facebook question.
Yeah.
Are you available to hire, and how do I do that?
Are you available to hire?
And how do we do that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You can reach. We can reach out to us on social media or our Fizz Events website. But just reach out to us through our socials. Rob Theo, you'll find me, and Connie Theodoridis, you'll find Connie as well. Whether it's a speaking engagement, mentoring, coaching, we'd love to join you. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Eagle's smiling. Eagle, you have a question? No, you said. Is there any other questions in regards to what we spoke about today, or any other comments or feedback? No.
Grace, you've got a question. I know you do. I can see you.
Come on, Gracie, come on.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that was fantastic, and thank you for taking the time to put that all together, because I know behind the scenes it took a bit of work to put that package together and that program. So you guys are the best, and you really practice what you preach, and very dear to my heart, and rise to greatness, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna get there, and you're gonna shine pretty brightly.
Thank you, Grace. Well, we're blessed to have you as part of the team. So it's a small team, but I know what everyone can deliver on that team. And together we're congruent, and and I just want to reiterate one more thing. Every single person has someone to teach somebody else. Don't ever think that you can't teach someone something else. No matter how old you are, what industry you're in. For me and Connie, we've got a very strong passion in helping people. If I was, and this is the honest truth, if I was to get taken away tomorrow and I haven't shared my wisdom with everybody else, stuff that I've learned, things that I can help others with, then I haven't done my job. And this is one of the main values and core values of what we do for these events.
Guys, I can't, hand on heart, in terms of, only got a couple of more minutes, I can't reiterate that I've been doing this for such a long time. Go home. If you really want to actually make a difference in your brand, in your business, you can never peak. You're always just perfecting and getting better. We've given you some fundamentals that I have actually been coaching over all these decades, and they work. They really work. They've elevated both of our businesses. They've elevated other people. Implement those. It doesn't, the last thing, don't complicate things. Keep things simple. Keep things simple so you can actually maintain review. You don't need to overcomplicate things these days. We kept our slides simple, very simple in terms of you actually having to write down some of the points. I hope you did. Keep it simple, practice what you preach, go out there, put the work in, and I know that you'll all be amazing in your branding and your brand development. We want to thank Collaborate because the facilities have been absolutely amazing here. We've got Kyle, Leah and Joe all around. You probably can't see them, but I mean, we've obviously put the content together, but that was not possible without these amazing people. Joe.
Talk about a strong brand.
Come,
Joe from Collaborate and Wally from the Canterbury Bankstown Chamber, they're amazing people. If they say they're going to do something, they do it. And again, it stems from core values. So we just want to thank Joe and Wally so much for giving us the opportunity to share this today with everyone. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, we're very excited for the Brave project, for this to be the first of the 3 marketing workshops. We've got Canva by Canva coming up, and we've also got workshop 3, which will be content delivered by Frankie and Co. And I think in March, I think we've got Dr. Michelle Cole here. We'll be looking at launching financial literacy. So right now, the Brave project is on fire. What a wonderful opening. So thank you very much to Fizz Events. And then we've obviously got International Women's Day. So we're very, very excited by that. We're bringing it to a close because we requested it was lunchtime.
1 minute to go.
So if you just want to wrap that up, thank you everybody. We'll see much more of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. That's us in a nutshell, guys. Obviously, as Rob said, if you want to get in contact with us, reach out through our socials or our website. Thank you for holding our space for us, and hope that we've actually given you even 2%, like even just something that you go back to your businesses and actually just implement. So
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Take care.